Hello and good evening, Chicago. Welcome back to Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I am your host, Adam Karnick. Wow, we have got a lot to get through tonight. March Madness has indeed descended upon us. 4 double-digit seeds making it into the Sweet 16 in the tournament. All kinds of bracket upsets happening left, right, center, and sideways. But as the dust cleared on the first weekend, both of Illinois' schools found themselves on the outside looking in. We will discuss both Illinois' loss in the second round and Loyola Chicago's loss in the first round as they are now officially switching conferences. We will discuss that, plus other disappointing news just throughout the Chicago sports landscape this past week. The first free agent signing of the Ryan Poles era for the Bears did not end the way they would have liked. Larry Ogunjobi will not be playing for the Bears. We will discuss the fallout from that. Plus, the Blackhawks made some moves to indicate that they are definitely on course for a rebuild. We will look at things happening in the hockey world, but on a good note, the other inhabitants of the United Center, Patrick Williams is back for the Bulls. Is that going to be the burst of energy that they need getting into the home stretch? We will talk about all that and more on tonight's episode. Buckle on up. Let's have some fun. And once again, hello and good evening to everyone out there. You have found your way into Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I am your host, Adam Karnick. Very excited to be with you tonight. Happy to be getting through a lot of sports things tonight, ranging from college hoops, pro football, pro hockey, lots of things that we're getting into tonight as we get started. So without any further ado, of course, we have to acknowledge our sponsors and our ad reads for the week. So without any further ado, let's get on into that. Here at IE Sports Radio, we are sponsored by the Southern California Warriors semi-pro football team. The world of semi-pro sports is unlike any other sports organizations. Players pay to play in hopes of so many different outcomes, whether it's playing to get filmed to try out for professional teams, big-time colleges, or just playing to stay in shape. No matter what, all semi-pro players have one thing in common, and that's playing for the love of the game. The SoCal Warriors have been on a quest to earn titles and give players second chances since 2017. Whether you're in Southern California or anywhere in the world, give semi-pro sports a chance if you love your sport. You may get that second chance you've been waiting for as an athlete. Find them on Twitter at SoCal Warriors, Instagram at Southern California_Warriors, or search them on Facebook, Southern California Warriors. And IE Sports Radio is available on all of the major social platforms. Search at IE Sports Radio, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, or just go to our website, iesportsradio.com. And while you're there, you can check out our website. For the last 7.5 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content, ranging from interviewing legendary athletes to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. All the while, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and with your help, we are ready to take the next step. Go to our website, iesportsradio.com, and you'll see our Patreon link with 5 different tiers, the first one starting at just $5 a month. This donation gets you a shout-out on all 31 of our shows. Higher tiers include IE Sports Radio merchandise, access to our podcasting university, and even a chance to be featured on a segment of our flagship show, The Defining Moment, with Larry B. Thank you all very much for continuing to make IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports. And a shout out, thank you to Emlos Great and at Bay Area Raised on Twitter for being our Patreon supporters. We really do appreciate that. While you're there as well, you can check out information on all of the shows. There's links and bios about the different shows that we have here on the network, plus information about the different colorful personalities that we have here, some of whom are in the chat room here tonight with us. We'll talk to them a little bit as well. And you'll also see some of the different things we have going on at the station. For example, the 2022 NFL Draft is right around the corner. IE Sports Radio is excited to announce its third annual mock draft challenge. The rules are simple. Predict all 32 first-round picks. The Bears don't have one, so you don't have to worry about any bias or things getting in there for the Bears. No trades, no modifications, no tricks. The participant who has the best mock draft will receive a shout-out on all of our shows and their choice of an IE Sports Radio hat. If you are challenged with hair like I am, then that's an obvious choice, or a shirt. For more information or to submit your mock, please reach out to Mike Pat, the host of Let's Whine About Sports Sunday nights on IE Sports Radio. You can reach him at Let's Whine _IESR. Good luck. We do have a fan of the month for this month, Marcy _Vargas 88. She is a Packer fan, boo, from Mexico. So thank you to Marcy for being our fan of the month. You can check her out on Twitter at Marcy _Vargas 88. So thank you to her. And also, if you've been trying to keep up with all of the tournament games this past week, these past 4 days, but you've been having a hard time, we can help you out with that. March, as we all know, is tournament time. If you can't catch one of the games, we've got you covered across our entire family of networks. USRN, USRN2, Wellington Sports Radio, and IE Sports Radio are all doing live broadcasts of the March tournament games. You go to Mixlr.com, and you can download the app, and there you can catch any and all of the tournament games and keep up. Guys like Seth Eves and Matthew Owens have been doing an excellent job broadcasting games. Our own Larry B has been broadcasting games. Taryn Rodriguez has broadcasted some games. I see him in the chat. Gina G has done some broadcasts. Lots of people keeping you busy, keeping you up to date with all the games, and lots more live broadcasts to be coming too. So stay tuned for that as well. And for those of you listening live, if you can, hop on into the Spreaker, into Spreaker.com. You can sign in, create a username. It's free. We can interact into the chat that way. I see Taryn, Amanda, Scotty is there. Good evening, everyone, to you there. Of course, you can follow along with this show at IESRC on Twitter, or follow me at Adam_Karnick. Or if you just want to sit back and listen, I am here for you. However, I can help you get through your night or day or wherever you're listening to that. Thank you for being here. I have been very guest heavy the last few weeks. This is the first time in nearly a month that it is just me on the docket tonight. I like having guests, but I'm honestly kind of excited to just me, open mic, and you in the chat room to interact that way. Let's have some fun. I want to start things off, of course, with the tournament. I see some fun chats coming in. Amanda, have a great show from the rival state. Yeah, Amanda, we will be talking about the trade there between the Blackhawks and the Wild a little later on. Amanda hosts Frozen Takes here on Saturday afternoons here on IE Sports Radio, covering all things Minnesota. Her Minnesota Wild just got quite a bit better thanks to the Blackhawks starting a rebuild. We will get into that a little bit later on. I wanted to start things off, though, with the tournament. That's, of course, the big thing that everybody's been keeping an eye on. Everybody's bracket is, of course, thoroughly busted by that. I think at this point in the IE Sports Radio bracket, I want to say, last I checked, I'm in 25th place out of about 30 entries, which sounds about right. Usually for me, I put in some work. I have some fun. I want to enjoy it. Oh, I'm 21st. Yay, go me. I'm a little better than I thought. At the same time, I don't get too worked up or worried about it. I do recognize some of a lot of the names in there. So lots of people having fun with the brackets. Of course, everybody's bracket got destroyed when Kentucky lost to St. Peter's. St. Peter's now gets to come to the Eastern Regional and take on Purdue next. Those are the things that we enjoy about the tournament, is when we see stories like St. Peter, who I'm sure Pierre and Harrison on the show that never sleeps on Wednesday, covering all things New York and New Jersey, they'll have some fun thoughts on St. Peter's, since that's in their region as well. Go Peacocks. Thank you, Matt Garner. Yes, go Peacocks. I dearly hope after they won that game that they got some kind of a broadcasting deal with NBC done. That just seems far too perfect. A match made in heaven, as it were, between those two. But it was not fun for the Illinois schools. Now, if you listened the last couple weeks, as Matt is in there in the chat, he's been on the last couple weeks. We previewed the tournament for Illinois and for Loyola. We were not very gung-ho about their chances. We didn't suspect that either school would make it out of the first weekend. Oh, NBC funded the bus trip for the cheerleaders to go to India. Hey, there you go. Cool. See, they did reach out to NBC and made something happen. Very cool. Something came of my ridiculous joke. I like it. But we were not very high on the chances of either Illinois or Loyola Chicago making it out of the first weekend. Unfortunately, they proved us right. I want to start with Illinois, primarily because it's the bigger school. And also, the expectations, I feel, were certainly higher for Illinois. Being a Big Ten school, being the Big Ten regular season champions, and for the second year in a row, being a top 4 seed. Now, we can argue about the way the bracket was set up, and Matt pointed it out on the show last week. Taryn brought it up in his broadcast of the Illinois-Houston game yesterday afternoon, right around the morning, afternoon, that in-between time there when the game was played. And they even brought it up on the national broadcast, on the NCAA broadcast. Houston was not a 5 seed. There's no way that Houston was a 5 seed. They had a net rating that would have put them significantly higher. Houston should have been bare minimum a 3, realistically a 2, and you could maybe make an argument that they had an outside shot at being a 1 seed. The committee decided they were a 5 seed for whatever reason. It was brought up on the television broadcast that potentially the conference that Houston plays in, because Houston doesn't play in one of the Power 5 football conferences, that, they must have been looked down upon because of that. But there's no way Houston was a 5 seed. That being said, this is now 2 years in a row where Illinois has been a top 4 seed, which, I mean, if you're going by chalk, then by rights, the committee is expecting that Illinois would make it into the Sweet 16. And this is now 2 years in a row that Illinois has failed to get out of the first weekend. You can talk about which one was more disappointing. Probably last year's loss to Loyola was arguably the bigger upset, or the more surprising loss, because Illinois was a 1 seed. And while we were all looking forward to the Illinois-Loyola game, as exciting as it was to see Loyola beat Illinois, there was still that, wow, Illinois a 1 seed thinking that maybe this is a chance to win its first ever NCAA title gets bounced in the second round. This year, all right, you ran into a Houston team that frankly you shouldn't have encountered until deeper into the tournament. But still, that first round game against Chattanooga didn't look Illinois didn't look very confident in that game either, playing against Chattanooga. Chattanooga nearly pulled off that upset. Illinois, there a lot of ways you could put it. None of them are good. Streaky, plays down to the level of its competition, gets scared in March. However you want to put it. Matt put it very nicely here in the chat. Illinois is the Gonzaga of the Big Ten, always overrated and never fails to disappoint in the tournament. And that's spot on. That's hitting the nail straight on the head there. And yeah, the first game against Chattanooga, they were terrified. They were playing scared. They win the Big Ten regular season, earn the double bye, and then immediately get bounced by Indiana. First game, you're in the quarterfinal, you play Indiana and immediately get bounced. Then you get into, it's still okay, you still make the national tournament. You wind up as a 4 seed. Maybe that was a little high. Certainly your second round opponent was seeded too low. Be that as it may, you wound up barely making it out of the first round against a team that you should have been able to handle comfortably. And then you get absolutely exposed against a Houston team that actually I picked to win the national title. Now, take that with the most minuscule grain of salt possible. Don't put a whole lot of stock in my picking Houston, but the point being, that was a team you got exposed in a big way as your Illinois. And now where do you go? You've got guys like Coburn and Williams who are graduating and moving on. Where do you go from here? What's next for Illinois? You felt like and Scotty, well, yeah, Scotty, I would expect you would be picking Arizona. We'll see how far Arizona makes it in this tournament. I sense that there's more madness coming. I would not be surprised to see only one of the 1 seeds make it into the Final Four. We'll get into that in here in just a little bit. But where do you go from here if you're Illinois? I feel like they've peaked. You're going to lose some key players. It's going to be very interesting. Hopefully Coach Underwood, when Coach Underwood came on, he was able to get the program built up to respectability fairly quickly. Let's see what happens now in the next season or two as they lose some of these guys. I mean, they lost Io to the Bulls last year. Io is playing right now with his Bulls. We'll talk about them in a little bit. You're going to lose Coburn. You're losing Williams. You're losing some other pieces. I'm curious to see how this next bit goes for Illinois. I suspect that there's going to be a little bit of a fall next season. I wonder just how big it is. Can Coach Underwood prevent the fall from being too big? Illinois should be a school. When you figure that Chicago is a basketball hub, especially at the high school level, the public leagues are so strong, so talented. You've got such a rich talent pool right there in your own backyard if you're Illinois. Illinois should be a team that is a staple in the tournament year in and year out. But that's not always the case. I want to see just how far they fall here. How how well can Coach Underwood keep things from deteriorating too badly here in the next season or two. Now let's talk about Loyola real quick. Loyola came in as a 10 seed. And, of course, we remember from a few years ago when they made that run to the Final Four as an 11 seed. Matt brings up Illinois is a better recruiting than DePaul or Northwestern. Well, DePaul can't get out of its own way. DePaul keeps firing coaches and general managers left, right, center, general managers. Athletic directors. There we go. Whee! Maybe I should have a guest on. Then I can stop talking for a minute. DePaul can't make up its mind what kind of a program it wants to be. It's strong on the women's side of basketball. Men's hoops, it hasn't been anything for years. Northwestern just fell off the face of the map just as quickly as it ascended. So yeah, Illinois should be out recruiting those two schools. But Loyola, maybe we were all a little high. And when I say all, I mean all. You looked at the numbers coming in. Vegas had Loyola favored to beat Ohio State. So we were all expecting it. We were all saying, this is just where Loyola wants to be. A double-digit seed, maybe sliding in a little under the radar, taking on a Big Ten school. This won't be too big for them. Villanova might be a little much, but Ohio State, they can get back past them and make a little bit of noise in this tournament. And then they couldn't buy a basket. I was watching that game, seeing the numbers trickle in from it. This is now, it reminded me of how they lost in the Sweet 16 last year, where they just could not buy a basket. It didn't matter if it was a layup, if it was a mid-range shot, if it was a three-point shot. They couldn't hit anything. They couldn't hit free throws. There was nothing that Loyola Chicago could do in that game. There was nothing right that they could do. And that's now back-to-back tournament games where Loyola has very underwhelmed. And I wonder, and obviously, it's still Loyola. It's still a mid-major. It's still, the expectations aren't going to be as high as they are for a school like Illinois. So obviously there's not as far to fall when you do fall. But that felt very much like a fall for the program in that game. And bad timing on it too. Right as they're moving out of they're saying, hey, we're ready to take a step up in class in our competition and with our recruiting and our overall draw by moving into out of the Missouri Valley, a historic one-bid conference, into the Atlantic 10, which is a conference that they might only get 2 bids, but they get multiple bids more often than not into the tournament. They're still a mid-major conference, but they're a slight step up. And to have that showing, I mean, the Atlantic 10 has got to be looking and going, "Ugh, man, we wanted to let them in? Okay, well, I mean, it'll help Davidson. It'll help Richmond. It'll help some of the other schools, and it gets our toe as a conference into Chicago, into a market we weren't in before. But that was not a good showing for Loyola to say, "Hey, Atlantic 10, what do you think of this?" So yeah, definitely a wake up call for Loyola. We'll see. We'll see what happens in Loyola. I mean, there's a lot of kids going to be leaving that program. Drew Valentine has always been good at recruiting. So we'll see. I suspect that Coach Valentine will be able to still bring in a good class of kid that will fit Loyola and fit what they're trying to do. I'm not as concerned with Loyola. Again, probably because they are a mid-major. as opposed to Illinois being a, Power 5 school, I'm not as concerned with Loyola, though. I feel like I trust Drew Valentine to be able to recruit in kids and keep that program relatively afloat. We'll see what happens, though. It'll be very interesting. So now the tournament shifts to the Sweet 16. We have the Midwest region coming to Chicago. And I see the time. I want to make sure that I break. I am the only show on tonight, so I can't go a little late. But at the same time, I don't want to be on here forever with everybody. I do have one pseudo-sports minor complaint about the tournament. I was talking with Matt specifically about this last night, so he has an inside track here on this of where I'm going. I love the courts. They look fantastic. There's not a single thing about these March Madness courts that I can complain about. The aesthetic. They look gorgeous. They look beautiful. I love the two-toned wood to know that's a 2-point shot. That's a 3-point shot. Oh, he's at the free throw line because of the different color, the different stains on the wood. Looks beautiful and gorgeous. My one complaint, if I'm allowed to have a complaint, it's my own show. I'm on here by myself. I think I'm allowed to have a minor complaint. I wish that they could have a little bit more individuality into the court. I remember watching the tournament as a kid, and you'd turn it on, and a court in the South region would have artwork on it that was very different from a court that was in the West region or the Midwest region. So you could know at a glance, hey, we're in... Oh, thank you, Gina. I have permission to complain. Thank you. You'd know at a glance, once you figured out the code, of course, oh, this is a South regional game. Oh, this is an East regional game. I'd like if they could figure out a way to put that in with the courts a little bit, especially since United Center is about to get featured for the Midwest Regional. It'd be nice if there'd be some way on the court besides, yes, I know, Matt, I can see you typing it already, so you can stop. They have buried at the score table the city where that game is being played. But it's a little bit like the end racism at the back of the NFL end zone. Sure, it's there, and they can say, oh, see, we put your messaging there on the field, but it's where nobody's looking. It's the same thing here. Nobody's looking at the spot under the scorer's table to see what city we're in. I'd like if they could put in just a little something. The Chicago skyline, maybe somewhere on the court where you could mix it in, see it, and just know, oh, here's where we are. Mix in some of the local flavor a little bit. That's all I'm asking. So, while still maintaining the beautiful generic aesthetic that they already have. Just something to work on. Something to work on there. That's all I ask. I want it to be beautiful, but also unique in all the spots. Is that too much to ask for? I don't think so. The NCAA makes billions of dollars. I'm sure they can figure out a way to make it work. All right. With that, we are going to take our first quick break. Yeah, I see you. Yeah, Matt, sipping your tea there. I hear you in the background. All right, we're going to take our first quick break, and then when we come back, the NHL trade deadline was today. The Blackhawks were busy. They had announced that they wanted to do a rebuild. They are rebuilding. We will talk about a couple of major moves that they did make and one huge move that they did not make. All that and more coming up. This is Chi-Town Weekly on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Motorsports takes many forms, and there's one show on IE Sports Radio that's ready to cover it all.
I sure hope you're talking about you and I, Daryl, because I know the Extra Mile is the best place to go for everything motorsports related.
Yes, it is. From NASCAR to IndyCar to sports cars to everything in between, IE Sports Radio has everything covered for the fastest sport in the world.
Plus, don't forget all of our random shenanigans along the way.
That's right, Caitlin. So for plenty of motorsports coverage and plenty of Caitlinisms, check out The Extra Mile on IE Sports Radio with Daryl Kingston Jr. and Caitlin Seen, Thursdays at 8 p.m.
What is going on, everybody? My name is Harrison Glazer, and we're coming at you from the Show That Never Sleeps podcast. I cover the Jets, the Islanders, the Nets, and the Yankees.
This is Pierre Moss, and I cover the Mets, Knicks, Rangers, and the Giants.
Our show is live every Wednesday through Spreaker and a bunch of other ways to get our content. Again, we're the Show That Never Sleeps podcast. We talk about all those New York sports. It's a lot of fun. We get into all of it. Please tune in. Again, that's Wednesdays at 6 p.m.
And we look forward to having you guys right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey USRN fans, do you have a product or company you're trying to promote? Look no further. USRN is teaming up with small local businesses trying to establish themselves via online promotion. Let us know if you're interested. Email us at usrnradio@gmail.com to learn more.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Davidson.
It's your boy, Notorious Lava.
And we are the hosts of Fast Break here on IE Sports Radio, where we discuss everything in the world of basketball from prep to the pros.
You guys should definitely check us out, man. Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We got all the basketball information you guys need, so we look forward to you guys listening in.
And please do, because we are the best basketball show on this side of the Mississippi. And please do check us out on Twitter at FastBreakISR. D-Lock, where's our time again?
8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That gives you guys plenty of time on a Sunday.
Tune in.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? This is your host, Beantown Brandon from Titletown Sports, right here on the greatest, and I mean the absolute greatest podcast team right here on IESR Sports Radio. That's right. Come join me every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, live from the greatest city on earth, Boston, Massachusetts, here to talk about all things Boston sports. That is right, baby. We get in to talk about some Boston Red Sox, Boston Celtics, Boston Bruins, New England Revolutions, Boston College Eagles, and of course, your host's favorite team of all, the New England Patriots, baby. Woo! That's right. Come join your host, Beantown Brandon, and let's relive all the glory days of the past, all the great championships that we've endured, all the horrible, heartbreaking losses that even yours truly chooses to forget. So you know what? Grab an ice-cold Samuel Adams. Come with me to Faneuil Hall as we go pick up that lobster roll we've been craving earlier in the week. Let's get some clam chowder, warm ourselves up to some Titletown sports. Any way you like it, we're going to have a blast. So you know what to do. Join your host, Beantown Brandon, every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, coming at you from the home and the heartland of Boston, Massachusetts, to represent your New England and Boston sports. Weekly, right here on Titletown Sports, IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is Boston sports. See you there.
And welcome back to Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Just going to kind of let that music from the Titletown drop just kind of stay with us here for a little bit. I like it. It's a nice groove. I like it. It's a good thing there's not a camera on me while I do this show. I tend to start doing something. So it's a good thing. All right, so we spent a lot of time talking tournament there in the first segment, but now I want to shift gears into the pro world, specifically into hockey. Now, those of you who may not know, I have a show that I do tomorrow night with my buddy Zach Puplis, where we talk all things hockey. That is the Neutral Zone. On Tuesday nights, we do that at 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock in the East, or 6 o'clock out there in the West by people like Gina. And so we will be, today was the NHL trade deadline. Zach and I will be breaking down the entire trade deadline a lot more in depth tomorrow night with all the moves that were going on. But there were some big local moves that happened over the weekend that I want to get into and kind of give you a timeline here. On Saturday, the Blackhawks new general manager has announced that, yes, they are going to be doing a rebuild. It might not be a complete tear it down to the screws, but there's definitely going to be some moving of significant pieces, significant players trying to get better, because the Blackhawks are struggling. They came into this season hoping that they were going to have some title aspirations, and that has never, ever materialized this season. They are sitting near the bottom of the entire Western Conference. They are currently sitting with just 53 points in 63 games. They're in front of just Arizona in the Central Division. They are done. So on Saturday, they were able to make a major move. Brandon Hagel, one of their young, good forwards, they got an offer that they absolutely could not say no to. The Tampa Bay Lightning, who are looking to just keep going on this tear that they are on, dominating the NHL, looking to win yet another Stanley Cup, sent 2 players and 2 first-round picks to the Hawks in exchange for Brandon Hagel and a couple of fourth-round picks. The Hawks sent their 4th-round pick this year and their 4th-round pick in 2024. The Lightning sent Chicago their 1st-round pick in 2023 and their 1st-round pick in 2024. The picks that the Lightning are sending are technically protected. They're top 10 protected. I don't see any way that the Lightning finish low enough in the NHL the next couple of seasons where that will be an issue. The Lightning should be competitive for years to come. They're just too well set up. The players that the Hawks got in return, a couple of guys that are up at the NHL squad right now. Boris Katchuk, a left winger who's basically taking Hagel's spot, and then a defender, Taylor Radish. Or excuse me, a right winger, Taylor Radish. A couple of guys Radish has already played yesterday I believe Tkachuk did as well for the Hawks. But that was the signal from General Manager King that they're moving in a new direction. That they're selling, they're rebuilding. Before it had all just been talk. The other big move, the big indicator, was they traded Marc-Andre Fleury earlier today. Marc-Andre Fleury has been phenomenal as a goalie all season long. And you look at his numbers on the season. He has not been the reason that the Hawks have been struggling. He's giving up less than 3 goals a game. He's stopping nearly 91% of the shots he faces. He is not the reason that they have been struggling. He's 19-21-5 this season. That record is not indicative of how well he has played. He has kept the Hawks in games that they otherwise would not be. And it's been an open secret that the Hawks were shopping him and were expecting to move him. And it happened today just before the deadline. They sent him up the road a ways to St. Paul. He's going to play with the Minnesota Wild, who are absolutely in the hunt for the Stanley Cup. They should make the playoffs. It's a question. It's more a question of just where are they going to sit. They're just a point behind St. Louis for second in the division. They're also not that far. They're tied with Nashville for a wild card spot. So they're right there. And you'd much rather, if you're Minnesota, you would much rather stay in the 3 spot or the 2 spot than fall down into the wild card. Zach and I will get a little bit more into that tomorrow of why you want to be doing that. Suffice to say, it's a slightly easier path for Minnesota. This is a huge move for Minnesota, getting a goalie of Fleury's caliber to help them on this postseason run. And for the Blackhawks, what they get in return is guaranteed a second-round pick, potentially could move up to a first-round pick. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to find the conditions. It's being listed as a conditional first-round pick. I have not been able to see just what the conditions are on the trade. But to be able to get potentially a first-round pick for a 38-year-old goalie, fantastic move. Great for him, too. Fleury, you might remember, Fleury got traded to the Blackhawks this offseason by Vegas. Fleury had no idea that Vegas was going to move on from him. He had completely expected that Vegas was where he was going to retire. He had set down some family roots there. They were happy there. And then he found out, I've been traded to Chicago? And he even openly contemplated whether or not he would just retire and not even honor the trade. And he would have been right to do that, by the way. I know some people are going to rail against that. He would have been well within his right to just say, you know what? I wasn't expecting this. This isn't the right move. This isn't in the best interest of my family. I'm going to step away from the game. He would have been well within his right to do that. Instead, he honors the trade. He goes to Chicago, and he's loved it here. In fact, he's got a no-trade clause in his agreement now with Chicago. He's got a limited no-movement clause. The Blackhawks came to him and said, hey, we're looking to move you. Where would you like to go? And effectively, obviously he wanted to go to a contender, but he also told them, hey, I want to leave my family here in Chicago. We are happy here. We like it here. My kids are loving school here. I want my family to be able to stay in Chicago, but I want to stay close enough that I can see them. I can easily make it back and forth. effectively that left Minnesota as his option. And they made a deal work. And it's a easy commute. My wife and I have done it several times. I mean, it's an hour flight from Minneapolis to Chicago. That's an hour-long flight. You're in the air less than an hour. You're back and forth. So it's a relatively easy, if they've got a couple days off, he can fly out of Minneapolis, come here to Chicago, spend a day with his family, with his kids, and then fly back to Minnesota and be able to play. But it's a great move for Fleury and for the Hawks to be able to get what hopefully will be a first-round pick in this upcoming draft for a goalie that absolutely should be helping. Minnesota make a deep playoff run. The move that they didn't make, that I was expecting them to make all day long, and I was waiting for it, and I was bracing for it, was the trading of Patrick Kane. I spent a lot of time on this show the last several months when I've been talking about the Hawks. It, of course, hasn't been good. It's been for non-hockey things, and it's been things that have made me upset and angry and riled up. All that said, though, I still enjoy the game. I still enjoy watching the team when they're not playing a miserable brand of hockey. Patrick Kane has always been a joy to watch. He's just such a smooth skater, so inventive with ways to hang on to the puck. His stick handling is legendary. He has a no-trade clause. He's got a year left on his deal. He's 32. I thought, man, this is going to be it. They're going to move him. Once they traded Hagel, Kane had let the team know he was willing to be moved to the right team to the right city, to the right place for him. I expected it was coming. I was bracing for it all day long. It didn't happen. It's not to say that it can't happen. I think part of the reason it didn't, Kane carries with him a $10.5 million hit against the salary cap. There's not a lot of teams in the NHL that can just absorb that kind of cap blow. It's not like in the NFL where everybody's got gobs of that it just requires creative financial accounting, and you can find the money, you can find the ways to do it. I mean, look at the Packers, how they were $100 million against the salary cap, and they turned it all around and managed to sign Aaron Rodgers to a $1 billion extension or whatever it was, give him $50 million this year. Teams in the NFL can creatively find ways to make the money work when you're against the cap. NHL teams don't have that kind of flexibility, in part because they're based in Canada. There's 6 teams in Canada. The Canadian dollar comes into play. The Canadian dollar is almost worthless. So there's financial reasons that teams, they don't have the flexibility. So I suspect that Kane's salary cap number probably played a big part in why they didn't move him. But I would not be surprised to see that happen. I still would not be surprised to see that happen. And that will be a very sad day. That will be a very sad... I will have a very sad segment that I will do that day. I'm glad I didn't have to do it today. I'll leave it at that. All right, we're going to take one more quick break, and then when we come back, free agency has started in the NFL. It has not started the way you would have liked it if you're Ryan Poles and the Chicago Bears. We will talk about that next here on Chi-Town Weekly on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Right back after a quick break.
Attention, all sports fans. If you're someone who wakes up each morning with lists of sporting events to go along with your to-do list for the day, then you just might be a diehard. The world of sports is as vast as the ocean is deep, including the major leagues, the minor leagues, the college, and everything in between. This is me, your boy Larry B of IE Sports Radio, welcoming you to join me every Monday evening at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern on The Defining Moment, a show that focuses on what really matters in the sports world, sports themselves, and nothing outside of them. Once again, tune in for The Defining Moment with me, your boy Larry B, every Monday evening at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern on IE Sports Radio, right here on Spreaker.com. We'll see you then.
Hey, what's up, BS3 sports fans? If you love listening to the BS3 Sports Show, check out the weekend wrap-up every Monday at 12:15 Central Time, 1:15 Eastern, recapping the weekend in sports like you never heard it before. Comedy, interactive chat room, it's a must-listen. Weekend wrap-up on Spreaker.com. Part of the X Squad. Check it out. You won't be disappointed.
What's good, fight fans? It's your boy Marcus Los Great, here to give you what you want, here to give you what you need. Yeah, man. Yeah. I'm coming to you live, straight from your mama's basement with a crispy, awesome white tea. We are coming to you live every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome back to Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Adam Karnick here with you on this lovely Monday evening in March. A quick programming note before we dive into our final segment. The next couple of weeks, I will not be on Monday. Next week, I'm still trying to figure out what night I'm going to be on next week. I'm leaning towards Thursday at this point, but I'm still working out the details on that. The following week, the first full week of April, I will not be on at all. I am getting ready to do a musical, actually. I've been hired to play in the pit of a musical, we're getting towards game time on that. So the next couple Mondays I will not be on. I will be on next week. I'm still figuring out what time to be on. Follow along at IESRC on Twitter. I'll let everybody know as soon as I have that finalized what time it will be on. And then the first full week of April, I will not be on at all. I will be taking that week off. So just a quick programming aside there for that. So just the first week of April, just way too much going on to try to fit in a show. I won't even be getting home most nights until probably 11 o'clock at night most nights that first week of April. So no show that first week of April. We will catch up, which is the same because it means I'm gonna miss doing a baseball preview the very first week. I'll have to fit it in next week whenever I fit in the time. Do a little bit of an early preview on the Cubs and the White Sox, who are in a strange hot stove season right now. One team that's in a regular free agency period right now are the Bears. Yet it has not gone the way that Yes, Taryn, in 2 weeks, you'll be all by yourself on Monday night. Yes, the first Monday in April. Free agency for the Bears got off to a rocky start. News came out last Friday that Larry Ogunjobi, the free agent that the Bears grabbed as soon as the legal tampering period opened up last Monday, signed to a nice multi-year $24 million fully guaranteed, $24 million guaranteed deal to be the starting nose tackle, the 3 technique in their revamped 4-3 front. Well, he was coming off of an injury with the Bengals. Turns out that injury was more severe than they had originally thought. He failed his physical. He will not be joining the team. Certainly not the way that Ryan Poles would have liked his first offseason as general manager of the Bears to start. His first real signing. I mean, he made lots of moves the other way. We've talked about those. Trading Khalil Mack, cutting Tariq Cohen. Moving on from well-known and established players. Here was somebody that we could get excited was coming in and gonna. Thank you, Patty. Patty from our Buffalo show. You can hear her tomorrow night. She likes the singing. Oh, I could get all kinds of weird on this show, especially when I've got an open mic and I'm feeling in a particularly the right mood. Oh yeah, this show can go in all kinds of directions. Just look out. But it reminded me when Poles, when that signing failed, it reminded me of when Ryan Pace drafted Kevin White, and he immediately failed to pay dividends instantaneously. Your first big arrival moment, as a general manager, where you make or break your bones is in the off season. That's where people notice you. You get to have your moment of glory in the spotlight. Sure, during the season they have the camera shots of you sitting in the suite, and people will heap praise or anger as the situation arrives. But it's really during the off season where you're able to be front and center and out of the shadows, as you will. And so it's frustrating that your first big signing doesn't pan out. And as Matt points out, that the Kevin White draft was a harbinger of things to come for Ryan Pace. I'm hoping that isn't the case here with Ryan Poles, but of course it leaves a bad taste. It puts a bad omen out there right out of the gate that, oh no. Now, kudos to the Bears medical staff for catching it and for Poles to recognize it and back out of it. Now, at the same time, when I was talking with my wife about this, she said, boy, I hope that the player's able to get taken care of what he needs. And that's a good point. I hope that Larry Ogunjobi is able to continue to get the treatment that he needs. He's not currently employed by a team. I'm not sure exactly how that works for insurance purposes for the players. If you're not on a team, I'm sure there's a way in the union that all works out. But I hope for his sake that he's able to continue to get his foot treated and he is able to get back into football shape. But for the time being, it's frustrating for Ogunjobi. It's frustrating for the Bears. But it is a good move by Poles to recognize, okay, this didn't work. I've got this out. I need to take it. It's going to hurt. It's going to be painful. I need to take this out. I need to just recognize that this didn't work. But now where do you go? And they signed a player right away, actually from Terrence Chargers. I'm so excited about him, I have to look up the name to even remember who he was. Jones, I think, was his last name. He's had a few sacks in his career. He plays the position, which is good because the Bears currently don't have anybody that's really played the 3 technique at the professional level at this point. So they at least have that. But it feels like, okay, it's the warm body. Justin Jones. Thank you, Taryn. Justin Jones. And I don't want to diss on the guy, but he's not Larry Ogunjobi. Welcome to the team, not Larry Ogunjobi. That doesn't look very good on the back of the jersey. That's not a good fit. So it's a letdown. It's a disappointment. And you thought, and it just puts it just moves another position over from the fixed to needs to be addressed side of the ledger. And we already had plenty there. Of course, wide receiver. Of course, offensive line. They've gotten a couple of bodies there. A center from the Packers. I like that. I like that move. I don't like that they let Josh Daniels leave to go to Pittsburgh. He's going to go block for Mitch. Best of luck to Mitch in that situation there, by the way. Ben Mettello, the host of our Pittsburgh show, the Yinzer Report, you can hear him tomorrow afternoon at noon. He's thrilled about the signing. I'm excited that Pittsburgh didn't trade for Carson Wentz. And recognize that this is coming from a guy who still owns a Bears Trubisky jersey and was super excited to get it at the time. If you're expecting Mitchell Trubisky to guide you to the promised land, God bless you and best of luck to you, sir. I understand that Ben is excited and Steelers Nation absolutely should be excited that they have somebody other than Rudolph, who was going to be their starting quarterback. Mitch is absolutely better than that. But man, he's limited at quarterback. We'll leave it at that. He is limited. We'll see. Yeah, we'll see what can happen with the coaching staff. I know Patty has raved about his 1 year in Buffalo, that he really got, and that was the thing in Chicago. He got along great with the players. Everybody really, he's a wonderful young man, a great teammate. No complaints there. I just feel from a skills standpoint, he's probably limited. And we'll see what happens. Best of luck to him out there in Pittsburgh. I am frustrated that that Daniels now is going to be blocking for him instead of blocking for Fields. I'm not thrilled with that. We've seen polls. He wants to rip this thing apart and put his own stamp on it right away. He does not want this to be a gradual teardown. He wants this to be, he's taking a wrecking ball to this roster and building it up. But with the Ogunjobi, you thought they had the 3 technique handled. Now that moves back over to the needs to be addressed side of the ledger, along with wide receiver, along with offensive line, along with secondary. You got a lot of needs. There's just not going to be enough that they can do this offseason. We're unfortunately looking at what is going to be a long season ahead for the Bears, I fear. They do have a ton of money for next year's free agency. That keeps getting thrown out there. That number is going to get eaten up by players they are inevitably going to have to sign this year. So, yeah, and as Matt Garner points out, Brian Poles does not have the resources he needs this offseason. They're short on picks. They're short on cash. Next year, they're loaded with cash. They've got somewhere north of $120 million in salary cap space. They should have a full contingent of draft picks too. So we'll see. But I fear that we're in for a long season ahead for the Bears when we get to that in the fall. All right, I do want to get out of here. I do not want to go. I'm going a little long tonight because I am the only show on tonight. But at the same time, I don't want to be on here for forever. I do want to check in on the Bulls real quick before we go, though. They just hit halftime. The Bulls are hosting the Raptors tonight. It is 55-54 Toronto at the half. Tonight, Patrick Williams made his return to the Bulls. He's played 11 minutes so far off the bench, so he's played roughly half the game. Had a decent start offensively. He hit his first 2 shots to get 5 points. He's since then missed his last 3 shots. 2 of them were threes. So he's got 5 points, a couple of boards in 11 minutes of play here. It's nice, though, to see that he's back after suffering that injury back in October as the Bulls are getting ready for a playoff run. The Bulls need to start winning some games, and in a big way. The Bulls come in tonight on a 3-game losing streak. They're 2.5 back in Milwaukee. They're only a half game up on Cleveland for the 6th seed in the East. They've fallen all the way down to the 5 seed. They're a couple games behind Boston, a couple games behind Philly. This has gone real south, real fast for the Bulls. They're only a game and a half in front of Toronto for the 7. They're in real danger of falling into the play-in tournament in the NBA. You want to stay out of that as much as possible. They need to start stacking some wins. They need to start defending. They need to start guarding some people. Hopefully, Williams is able to bring that to them tonight, able to give them some defensive energy so that you don't need to have DeRozan and Levine putting up 40 points a night each so that they can stay in ball games. So it's good to see Patrick Williams back. Hopefully he doesn't overdo it here in this first game back. They do have a few games coming up here this week. They've got, obviously they're playing the Raptors right now. They've got Milwaukee coming up here in just a couple of days, and then the Pelicans shortly thereafter. They're basically every other day for the next couple of days. Hopefully they're able to stack some things together and keep things moving in the right direction in a forward pace. All right, that is going to do it for our show here tonight. Want to say thank you to the Southern California Warriors for continuing to sponsor us here on IE Sports Radio. It is much appreciated. Thank you for continuing to allow us to keep the lights on. Be sure to go to our website, iesportsradio.com. From there, you can be sure to participate in our NFL Draft Challenge, and be sure to check out our Patreon link, just like at Bay Area Raised, at MLosGreat on Twitter. Thank you to them for being our Patreon sponsors. If you're all able to do that, we really would appreciate it. It really will help this station to continue to grow and expand. We're looking at adding some regular play-by-play and live game opportunities onto the network, so keep an eye out for all that. I want to say thank you to Larry for everything he does behind the scenes, keeping this going. I know he's busy with class going on tonight. Thank you, Larry, for all the hard work you do behind the scenes, keeping everything going, keeping this motley crew going and pointed all in the same direction. Thank you to everybody listening in the chat tonight. Gina and Taryn and Matt. Amanda was there. Scotty was there. Thank you, everybody, for keeping the chat room going tonight. That was a lot of fun to interact with you guys that way. Finally, thank you, the listener, for being here, coming in each and every week, whether it's live on Monday nights or you catch me later on in the week as a podcast. Thank you for finding a spot in your week, in your life for me. I really do appreciate it. I love talking sports in the best sports town in the U.S., and I'm glad that you are bringing me along for the ride. I really do appreciate it. I am off on Mondays the next couple weeks. Again, next week I'm still figuring out a date. The week after that I will be off entirely. However, if you don't want to wait that long to hear me, tune in tomorrow night to Neutral Zone, 8 Central, 9 in the East. Zach Pupples and I will be breaking down a busy NHL trade deadline, plus all sorts of collegiate hockey action. That is tomorrow night. Until then, everybody be good. We will talk to you next time.